morning, Jason. How are you?
Hey, Chris. Doing well. How are you doing today?
Oh, not too bad.
Yeah.
It is one of those great days that I am looking forward to diving in and getting some wisdom from this podcast.
I know. Before we hit record, we're already sitting here calling out problems, calling out solutions,
Right?
solving the world, right?
Right. Because that's what we. If you didn't know this, that's our pre-show.
I mean, if you're
information.
listening to this and you're like, you know what? I really did feel that vibe this morning. The world is a better place. That's us.
Right?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, probably.
There's a better chance that we're the cause of the traffic jam that you're
Right.
sitting in right now.
There's days when we walk into this podcast, and if you sat here and listened to us pre-show, we work through all our fun stuff too.
It's iron sharpens iron.
It totally is.
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
Maybe we should rebrand.
Right.
No, let's not. Dude, yeah. Love being on the podcast with you.
Yes.
Sharing this time and leading and serving. The podcast, we're about just, how do we fight for the highest good of those around us? Our
sure.
teams, even our families and, our friendships like we do.
Right.
Iron
It's
sharpens iron,
exactly.
right? And so, that is the heart of what we're trying to accomplish here is interviewing business leaders, talking about how we lead in our entrepreneurial efforts and our leadership of just saying, man, we want to support others, right?
Right.
So, speaking of support, is there a way that people could support us?
Yes,
in this?
you should go to leadingisserving.com
Yeah.
because we have a ton of fun things on there, including an opportunity for you to send us a message so we can talk about it.
That's right. That's right. We'd love to hear your questions.
But there's also other ways that you can lead. You can leave us a coffee. Is that what it is?
A digital coffee.
Digital coffee. I keep throwing that part off.
That's right.
I'm super impressed that we have such a great way to connect to people. Like they don't have to text us or something or send us an email, but they can just put a little blurb there on the website and it goes directly to us.
Right.
I love that.
Rate the podcast, give us a review. Leave us a little donation if you want to, help see this on into higher and greater and bigger things.
Right.
We'd love, we appreciate your support and y'all tuning in each week. So,
yeah. So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are we talking about? Like one of the things, I know I've got some things on my heart that I want to talk about that we're going to throw things off a little bit differently. But what are we going to talk about first?
Yeah. Well, last week we started this kind of a 4-week series talking about the rhythms of leadership.
Mm-hmm.
As leaders, whether you're a team leader or you're a business leader or you are the owner, you're the end all,
leader.
right?
Right.
What do we do with our rhythms? And last week we talked about the daily, and now we're going to back up a little bit further and talk about weekly. Next week we'll talk about some quarterly rhythms, and then finally some annual rhythms in week 4 of this. But so we wanted to just think about how do we enter into a week, and how do we kind of set ourselves up for success. Right. I'm happy to be the fly by the seat of my pants guy. Right. I feel like, I've got the super brain and I can hold everything in it at all times and never forget anything. Right. That's false.
What?
I mean, how many times on the podcast have we been like, oh, the train left the station. I don't remember where we were at.
Right. Well, I think that, for many business owners who start out, that they think that that's the norm. Right. But then as the business grows, you quickly realize that it's not like you can't keep it all in your super brain.
At some level, you do have the capacity to keep everything in your head.
Yep.
And then something grows, and suddenly it has expanded your capacity.
Correct.
Or it's extended beyond your capacity.
You need to put a USB in your ear.
Yeah. What's the guy on Star Wars with the the whole computer? Never mind. Moving on. That was from the 70s, but yeah. The dream of the future. Anyway, so how do we create rhythms in our lives that help set us up for success? And if you Google rhythms and leadership rhythms and how to plan for the week and things like that, you're going to come up with a million resources. Right. And there is some great stuff out there. A lot of people have written wonderful books like the Atomic Habits book and Covey's book, something first. See, I can't keep everything in my head, and that's why we're just going to move on. Okay. But there's a lot of great books that talk about setting up these rhythms, and then there's all the strategy pieces like EOS, or Business Made Simple, or all these structures that create strategy, and part of that is how you deal with your week.
It's
right?
so true.
Having certain meetings, having certain rhythms within your leadership and how you lead your people.
Right.
And so what we're going to focus on, though, is a little bit more about how you lead yourself.
Okay.
Because you have to, we talk about that tool, the 5 circles of influence.
Right.
The central circle is you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't lead yourself well, how can you lead others well?
Right.
That you have to know yourself, know your own tendencies to be able to lead others well. And so that's what we're going to talk about a little bit. That you basically, probably what most leaders do, it seems like, is that they set aside an hour at the beginning of the week. Maybe it's at the end of the week. Maybe on like Friday they plan for the following week, or maybe it's Sunday night.
Right.
Or when is a good time for you to sit down that you can be kind of distraction free. You can focus. Hopefully you kind of go into that relaxed. That helps a little bit as well.
Right.
Of just going, okay, there's no pressure for me to actually get something done in this moment.
Right.
But just to think about what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And going in with that mindset, setting aside that time consistently. I've tried to do it on Sunday afternoon or evening, and that time just doesn't work for me.
Right.
I'm just not in the mood. The energy's not there. The mindset's not there, and so I'm still kind of currently searching for that better time.
Okay.
That when I do this practice, I feel so much better about life. It relieves stress for me.
Yeah.
To know that there's a plan, and
Right. Well, I know that, like, for me, I do set aside Fridays, but often Fridays my time it turns into catching up for the rest of the week, and then I don't get that time to finish.
Right.
But I know that on Tuesdays, we have meetings on Tuesday morning, and then I oftentimes have a meeting with my office manager afterwards, and that meeting is oftentimes a time of making sure that everything that's in my head is somewhat, she understands what's going on with some of the things that are going on that are constantly moving, and I need to catch up with her. And I kind of feel like that's I don't know if it's my mind dump, but it's the moment that I make sure that everybody, on Tuesdays, I know for sure, those are my clarity moments of trying to make sure everybody's on the same page of what I am.
Right.
And so that is a great, and the funny part is I know when I first started this, we didn't have weekly meetings. And it's been amazing how much, I just said something to somebody the other day that was like, I don't know if I could do without my weekly meetings, because I need to know that everybody's on that same page.
Right.
And I'm sure at moments it's boring. And I'm sure at moments it doesn't seem like it's effective or it's not worth the time. But then, if you get in that rhythm and that habit of every week having that meeting and having to come to terms with the conversation of something's going on, it's a huge thing.
Absolutely.
And it's probably helped. I would probably say it's helped from the perspective of the bigger company perspective of all of us together having those conversations than it has if we had not done it.
Yeah. Now, in your businesses, you guys follow the EOS.
Yeah.
Timelines and systems.
So we do
strategies.
an L10, which is, if you're familiar with EOS, is a meeting. It has a certain agenda
everything.
that we follow.
I'll talk about your 90-day rocks and your everything that comes up, your metrics. You've got a system that you use, right?
Right.
Okay. So my point is, we got to do this with ourselves.
Right.
We got to have this meeting with ourselves. Nobody else is invited. It's just you, your planner, and your calendar.
Right.
Right. And like you said,
accurate.
it's the mind dump. Just have a scratch piece of paper with you, or maybe it's in your planner where you just throw everything out.
Right.
Just get it out of your head so that you can see it on paper. Because in our head, it's we think we can move the chess pieces around, and we do pretty good. But once you see it on paper, that helps.
Right.
Being able to move things, categorize things, go, oh, that's really similar. That leads to this one. This is, this is how the dominoes fall through this.
Right.
And so just capture everything in your head. Get it out on paper. And, and if you're doing this, like you were saying, on Friday before the weekend, man, do you feel like that frees you up to relax more over the weekend?
Does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you got it out. You're not going to forget it because it's there.
Right.
You got it. So, you get all these things. And I think there's probably 3 things that most people do during this time. If you can set aside an hour, you might be able to knock it down less than that, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, depending on, the week or whatever. But, some people enjoy spending an hour or 2 hours on that just to really soak in the moment and make sure we're good. So there's probably 3 things that you definitely need to do. is one, you look back at the week and go, was it successful? Did I get done what I wanted to do? If I didn't, what do I need to push next week? You know, you kind of evaluate yourself and see where you can improve, what you need to catch up, and celebrate the wins.
Right.
You know, definitely celebrate the wins. In that time, also, you know, review your goals. It's a great time, which is what we're going to talk about here in a little bit, right?
Right.
To review your goals. To sit there and go, okay, we're going into mid of January at this point.
Right.
Only a couple weeks of the new year, but how are we going already? Have we hit these first couple steps? Is everybody on the same page, like you were saying?
Right.
Have I had those L10 meetings? Have I talked about the rocks? Does everybody on the same page, on the same motion?
Right.
You know, so review those goals, what needs to be done, and then look forward. So, you know, look at the last week, look at your goals, and then look forward.
Yep.
Right. And those are, you know, great ways. You know, some people can plan out. You know, there's some of us that are more gifted at calendaring.
Yeah.
And so they can plan out to the week,
right,
or to the minute, the entire week.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Others, you know, are going to have more flex in their schedule and how they plan things.
Right.
But you know, big rocks first. You know, if you want to use that EOS system, right? Covey, I think, was the one who put it in his book about the. I think it was a professor, or at least the story was of a professor that had a big glass jar, right?
Yep, I remember that one.
Said, how many big rocks can I put in the jar, right?
Right.
And, you know, and so they put all the rocks in. He says, the jar full? And everybody's like, yeah. You're like, no. So he gets smaller rocks and gravel, you know, pours it in. Now is it full? And they start catching on, like, no, not really.
Right.
Then the sand, you know, and everybody's like, okay, yeah, it's pretty full. And he goes, how about some water?
Right.
Right. And the story is...
but had you reversed it...
Right. If you don't put the big rocks in first,
yep,
you'll never get them in the jar,
right?
Or you'll get a few of them,
right?
Half of them, right?
Yeah.
And so,
very minimal amount.
Yeah. So being strategic, being, you know, in this, you know, when you fly up to the 30,000 foot view,
right,
that you're doing in this meeting with yourself, you're able to look objectively, not subjectively, emotionally, right? And so you can look at goals and go, hey, I'm okay, or, oh, I really need to catch up on this. Here's what needs to happen next week.
Right.
And you can see those things from that distance, and, you know, you can put those big rocks in,
right,
you know, and then you take it from there. And, you know, we've, a lot of people talk about time blocking, that, like, I'm Tuesday morning for 2 hours, I'm going to do X. I'm going to work on this goal for Tuesday hours. Nobody bugs me. I'm turning my phone off. I'm going to the library where, you know, nobody's going to bug me or whatever, right?
Right.
You know, if time blocking, that's a great strategy. I struggle with it, being more of a creative, kind of want to fly, you know, I kind of got to be in the mood to do certain things. And so, you know, I got to find the right time, you know, so I'm dealing with that. But anyway.
And I think it's exactly right. Like, you have that flexibility, but then there's times where you need to not have that flexibility and maybe have a little bit more guaranteed, like, this has got to happen during this time.
Right.
You know, that's right. And recognize the importance of both sides of that fence. That's where I'm at. I feel like there's days where I'm like, yeah, I'd love to have the flexibility. I love having that flexibility. But then there's days it's like, if I don't have this on the calendar, it won't get done.
Right. Absolutely. But also, you know, like, setting up proper expectations for yourself.
Right.
You know, that here are the 10 things that have to happen today.
Right.
Maybe not the best. Maybe.
Well, and I mean, my guess is if you're a guardian.
Well, and it depends on the size.
Speaks to your voice.
Right. It depends on the size of things too.
That's true.
If you're like, I have 10 phone calls I need to make, then okay, that's different. Right? I need to, you know, I need to send out, you know, there's 10 billable invoices I need to get out today.
Right.
That's probably one task, not 10 tasks. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah. That's one goal. I'm going to get all my invoicing out. You know. But yeah, if each task takes an hour and you put 10 of them down, then it's a long day.
That's a long day.
And you leave no room for the other stuff in life.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and so you know, giving yourself proper expectations. There's a lot of tools that say, you know, what is I don't know if it's Full Focus Planner or I'm blank on the other system that I'm thinking of. But anyway, one of them says, what are the 3 things I need to get done today? What are the top 3 things? And you even prioritize those, that if number 3 doesn't get done, you push it as to the number 1 the next day, right? Another system just says, what is the one thing that must be done today? That's non-negotiable. It must be done.
Right.
And so if you only get 2 hours work today, that's what you work on.
Right.
Right. And then, you prioritize everything else behind that.
Yeah.
I think of some of the other leadership tools that we've talked about, the X factor that, is the quadrants between the urgent and the important. Of what's urgent, what has to happen, but it could be unimportant.
Yeah.
Or it could be important. And that urgent importance got to get done first, right?
Right.
And it's that quadrant of it's important, but it's not urgent that gets pushed.
Oh, yeah.
That is the quadrant that gets, because the urgent, whether it's important or unimportant, it's probably going to get done.
Right.
And if it's unimportant and not urgent, who cares?
Right.
Right. So it's that quadrant of it's important, but it's not urgent. And that's next week. Next week, And so it's in these meetings that we sit down with ourselves and we say, all right, I need to knock out this portion of that. Because if I don't do that, the important will eventually be urgent, and then you got a dumpster fire on your hands. And
Right.
Because you've not worked toward it, right? So,
Right.
But then we also talked last week about like energy blocking. Of thinking, what hours of the day am I more productive? Can I deal with the heavy things, the light things? Because I did that for years. I tried to time block to other people's productivity rhythms.
Oh,
I'm working with a Type A, driving, up at 4.
right.
So
you started getting up at 4?
No. But their ability to be productive at 8 a.m.
Right.
is very different from my ability to be productive at 8 a.m.
Okay.
Right. And in the same way, when everybody goes to bed at 10 p.m., my productivity is very different.
Right.
Because he's already been in bed for 2 hours, right? And so understanding your rhythms, understanding when you work best, when you can best tackle those problems, is a huge part of this.
Yep,
So,
I completely agree.
Yeah. But we got all kinds of tools, all kinds of things out there that you can lean into, digital, analog. Pick your way.
Right.
Pick your choice.
For sure.
Take your choice. I love the physicality of writing. That's probably been my favorite.
Really?
Even though I love technology and I'm very digital, I actually just jumped into I'm trying something new because, here I am.
2023.
But I've really enjoyed bullet journaling. That's one of the philosophies that's out there. Has nothing to do with actual ammunition, but
No, I know.
making bullet lists, right?
Yeah. I actually have another friend that was trying it too. Yeah.
And man, I loved, the moleskin with a nice pen.
Yep.
It's just a good feel. It helps me, it roots me, it helps me feel a little more present. Right. But it frustrates me that now I've got moleskins that I've got good stuff in. I want to be able to just pull it up on my iPad.
Right.
And I don't know how. So, for Christmas, go ahead. No, you go.
I was gonna say, I actually think there's actually programs out there that you can like snap a picture of it and it'll rewrite it in.
Well, that's what I got for Christmas.
Oh, cool.
So I got a Rocket Book, which is the erasable, reusable notebook.
Yeah.
And I got the one that's sized similar to a moleskin and whatnot. But you mark this little icon at the bottom of the page, and it will send it to the destination of your choice.
Oh, nice.
And so there's 7 different things that I can categorize. And so my thought is, all right, I'm going to write in it like I would my moleskin, do my bullet journaling.
Right.
And then I digitize it, upload it, and it connects it to this one long running PDF. And I've got it on my iPad in Notability. And I can even search my own handwriting down the road of like, when did I talk to Chris about such and such? Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah,
we'll see. But yeah, there's a ton of tools out there. The full focus planner I know is a lot of people are huge fans of that. There's tools like Evernote. Even just your Notes app on your phones and your, tools and stuff like that. The Things app, OmniFocus, and then you get into like big project management stuff like Asana and Basecamp, Mondays. Those are valuable for keeping your team on board. Right. Even if you've got like an office manager, they can assign you
different tasks,
your stuff for the week.
Right.
And you don't even have to think about it as much because it's plotted in this project managing.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So jump in, plan it, and don't feel like, just because you planned Thursday the way you thought it would go doesn't mean that's exactly how it has to go.
Right.
Having that flexibility to adjust the plan. I worked with a guy that we'd finish a planning session. He'd go, great. Now we have a plan from which to deviate. I'm like, yep. Some personalities don't like being locked in, but it gives you guardrails for your week.
That's awesome.
So show up consistent, do this regularly, create that rhythm. And, I think you'll find huge benefits from it. I know that, I'm kind of in a gray zone at the moment. But
so am I. I was like, I guess I need to start doing this more. Like, this makes total sense. I don't know why I'm not doing this intentionally.
I know. I love it when I do it. And, I'm fighting to get back in that rhythm at the moment.
Well, and I mean, we're doing this at the beginning of 2023. And in this next part, like, I want to talk about, some of the frustrations of goals and, coming right out of the 2020, beginning in the middle of January in 2023, we're going to get ready to talk about some of those frustrations and how do you back some of those things out. So it's great that this has come up along with that too. You know what I mean? Because these are all kinds of things you want to.
We're very mindful right now of our time and
we
our
totally
productivity
are.
and our
And like everybody's at the gym, like so it's like in 3 months, I don't know how. I mean, when I used to work out regularly, it was just kind of that joke that give it a couple months,
right?
It'll dwindle back down,
right? 100%.
And unfortunately, I'm the guy that's on there for a couple months right now, and trying to work to getting back to the position where I was.
Right.
So, anyways, but let's.
Hey, you're trying.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. It's all about the effort.
Let's jump into the deep dive and talk about some of that.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Some of that.
Because it's easy goals. To already feel frustrated this year.
Totally is.
And we want 23 to be better than 22.
Right.
Because,
And I think some of these things that we're getting ready to talk about are something that I think that I kind of wish some of the people would have told me in my process of working with goals. Because they're not always as easy. Or maybe they just weren't always easy for me.
Right.
So.
All right.
All right.
So we're going to, have a little musical break and then we'll grab it.
All right. Sounds good. Jason, I think it's the beginning of the year. Obviously, we're walking into 2023, right?
Right.
And I just want to touch on something that I think that I wish somebody would have told me in the process of me working on my goals and things, especially in the beginning of the year, because here we are. We're the second week in January. Okay, so everybody's had a good run. We had good focus, and everybody was intentional about. I mean, we talked about last year about focusing on our goals and trying to October. So by the end of last year, hopefully you're getting some goals right now. Well, I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like even though I write those goals, then I get, early on into January and I'm like, I think these are like pie in the sky goals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so you're week 2 in to January, right? Because we're in the second week of January. And you're like, there's no way I can accomplish this.
Right.
Or I don't feel like I can accomplish this. Mm-hmm. And I think that I wish somebody would have told me that said, hey, take your goal, your bigger goal for the year.
Right.
And break it down to a monthly or a weekly or a daily thing. Like, hey, what do you need to do that's going to help you propel you forward into that goal?
Right.
And so that way, maybe you can recognize one of two things. One, you can break it down to give you some course of action on how to get there.
Okay.
And then 2, maybe you can help recognize that maybe it is too big of a lofty goal. So I know that so many people, it's been my experience as well, is like week 2 in, many people are still striving well to their goals, but then there's some people that have already fallen off the bandwagon.
Right.
So what I would like to talk about is what you called as goal obstruction, which I think is a great conversation. I think I wish somebody would have said, hey, where are you at with your goals right now? Are you making it? Are you not making it? And if so, or either way, why? Like, did you take the time to break it down? Did you take time to recognize that the small steps during the year that are maybe baby steps are going to get you to the point where you can make that bigger step so that you can try to hit that goal. And I think that many a times that we don't, some of the people that I've hung out with, we were talking about goals a lot last year and just trying to think about this 2023. And it's like, well, but how are you going to get there? It's great to throw a goal out there, but is it a pie in the sky thing, or is it I've talked to some business owners about BHAGs, which is like big, hairy, audacious goals, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, I recognize those for what those are. Those are like I don't know, when we talk about them, we're like talking about the God-sized goals, the goals that are, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, without God's hand in it, we can't make it happen, right?
Right.
But I'm just talking about like just our regular goals, like something that we think is obtainable, something that's going to push us to the point of being uncomfortable, but something that we also have to be somewhat methodical with to be able to make steps to go in the right direction. Because we got to the year end last year, and my guess is some people probably hit their goals well, but maybe they weren't big enough. Then I think there's probably some people that didn't hit their goals and they were too big.
Right.
So we're trying to find the happy middle of
what's achievable,
and what's going to stretch you to a level. I'm like, and I know this is probably not the best time to bring this all up right now, considering we didn't touch on goals that much. We touched on it. We talked about it.
Right. But I mean, I've had kids that have run like cross country. And I'm like, you can't start out of the gate too fast.
Right.
Or you'll poop out before the end of the race, right? And so that's where we're at.
Right.
Or if you don't set a good pace in January, then you're totally behind the 8 ball, and the last part of the race you're just sprinting. Right. Trying to get it. And that's not how you win a cross-country race.
Right. And so then the second half of the year just becomes this massive crunch.
Stressful,
exhausting.
Yeah.
So
but we love that.
Right.
That's the way we like to live life, right, Chris?
Right, exactly. So it's like, I was like, balance, right, is a huge thing for us, right? We talk about this is why we talk about our leadership goals and our leadership conversations is like, we want to coach people to be able to understand that these things are important and balance of life is important. So if we don't recognize some of these things about our goals, we're creating our own stress.
Yeah.
We're creating our own problems.
So let's go back to what you started with saying. So what I heard you saying is that, before the year starts, ideally we sat down and we looked at a 12-month time frame.
Right.
And we thought, what would I like to accomplish? What do I think is achievable? Maybe this is a little bit of a stretch or a lot of a stretch, but it needs to happen this next year, right?
Right.
So I guess the mechanics I'm thinking in this is that we're looking at what can be done in 12 months.
Right.
And what we can achieve in 12 months. Then we hit January, and that goal stays the same.
Right.
But you're looking at what can I accomplish today or this week or in January for a month.
Right.
But our perspective of the goal, a yearly goal, doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
When we're backed up to that 30,000 foot view, setting the goals, we're looking at a 12-month time span going, oh, we can do that. Mm-hmm. Then we hit January, the goal doesn't get broken down, but our time gets broken down.
Totally.
We change one of those filters and not the other. Mm-hmm. And we go, I don't know how I'm ever going to, now it feels totally unachievable. And so what we have to do is sit down and totally dissect that goal and make it into 12 steps.
Right.
Here's what I need to do. And so you have to change both your to-do list as well as that filter for what can be accomplished. Because you're not going to accomplish, you shouldn't be accomplishing your goal in January.
Right. And even at 12 steps, right? Like you broke it down to 12 steps. Well, maybe 12 steps is not enough. Like it's still too big. Like maybe it needs to broke down to weeks.
Exactly. Well, that's what what I was thinking is you change your to-do list. Here's what needs to accomplish this month. I need to accomplish these 3 big things. Well, those 3 big things need to get broke down into weekly and then daily, right? And so you have to change both filters, not just your to-do list, but what's accomplishable in that goal in that time frame. Does that make sense?
And ideally, right, I mean, it can't take up 100% of your time.
Right.
Because even though the goal is a great idea, like there's still things that are going to pop up. Like, I don't know if you have that problem at in your world, but stuff.
Dumpster fires? No.
No, right. Right.
Never seen one.
Right. Yeah. And then you have the stuff that you didn't expect or that you did expect, but that kind of went sideways and things, So it's like there's a combination of things that can throw that off. So it's like you definitely need to attribute some time to it.
Absolutely.
But not all your time.
Right.
Because once again, we're trying to, I think that's one thing that I realized as well is like, yes, I'm focused on 2023, but I'm also focused on my journey. Not like, it's like you said, I'm not running right out the race trying to go 150 mile an hour because Lord knows I can only assist.
Right.
Like I can't withstand that for very long.
I'm the guy who's just going to throw imperfect analogies as we go, but I mean, we talk about working in the business versus on the business.
Yes.
Right. And that's kind of what we're defining is there are things that just have to happen.
Right.
And there's dumpster fires that will come up that you have to deal with.
Right.
And so goal setting and working toward those goals is really more the on the business rather than in the business. And, maybe you're in a role, and when we say on the business, that might mean your department and your departmental goals, and you're the leader of that, or you are the business owner, right? As you're working toward those goals, that on the business, maybe that for you and your rhythms, that might mean I can dedicate 5% to that. Or you might be in a position where you're like, I can dedicate 90% of my time to working on the business. It just depends on how you're set up in your role, right? And so if you're the type of person who's sitting there going, I don't even know if I can put 5% toward working on the business. There's so much in the business stuff that I got to deal with every day, every week that I don't know how I'm going to do it. Right.
Right.
Here's the imperfect analogy that I was heading towards.
Right.
You mentioned this is a journey. It's a 12-month journey that you're on. If you're going to drive across country, you got to take body stops.
Right.
You got to fill up with gas. Right. This is that moment.
Those are things that have to happen, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, 5 minutes a day. If you just pull out for 5 minutes and go, you know what, I'm going to pull off the road, take a breath, get up to that, change those filters of what needs to be done and, and the timelines and, what's accomplishable and just think through it.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes, and we all have tendencies.
Right.
We all have inborn tendencies, and I'm great at that 30,000 level. I love dreaming big. I can, setting goals. It comes pretty natural, I'd love to accomplish this. I'd love to do this, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
Right. And when I'm forced or when I'm intentional, I can sit down and I can break down into those 12 steps.
Right.
Here's the 12 steps that need to happen to get there.
But
then I get into a month or into a week or a day, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how. I'm just going to do stuff.
Well, and my guess is, if I'm hearing you right, at some level, your creative side kicks in, and you go, well, that kind of pigeonholes me into what I have to do. I kind of want to do it my way and not this way.
Yeah.
But for the guardian that is, very much a list, like they have their 12 steps down. They've had their 12 steps down last 12 years ago. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I am totally the personality that if I see, the 5 steps that need to happen and I'm not ready to do number 2, I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
I'll totally research number 4. And I'll spend 4 hours.
Totally makes sense.
I'm ready. I can knock out number 4 in 30 minutes now, but I can't yet because I haven't done steps 2 and 3.
Those of you who are listening right now, this is the insight that you need to recognize because this is what happens off the air. Jason and I go off track sometimes just to try to catch up.
Even this recording, we were like, we're going to start at such and such time.
Right.
And 15 minutes later, we're like, go hit record. We got to get busy. Go on. But we were doing good stuff.
We were.
We weren't just shooting the breeze. But anyway.
So anyways, but I think that what I kind of wish at some level is that somebody would have helped me realize that these journey things, these things of, yes, does some of this probably take some of the creativity out of it if you're a creative? Yes and no. Yes, it gives you somewhat of a plan. No, you still have to get it done your way. You know what I mean? So there's some freedom there too.
For the other dreamers and creatives out there, what I've learned to value in my life is that guardrails give me more freedom to create
right,
than no guardrails.
Right.
If I have no guardrails, it's an amoeba of
Right.
thought. But with guardrails, it focuses your creativity. And so,
With one of my businesses, I do a lot of estimates for it, and I haven't done as very many estimates here in the last couple of weeks because of the holidays, and it just always throws that off. But what I've also realized is that all the work that I went into before that is now also still, even though I don't really feel like I did a whole lot, like I was working on stuff just differently, right? But I was like, I haven't done an estimate in forever. Like, I need to get back at it, right? But then I had a customer reach out to me this morning that said, hey, what's our timeline look like? And I was like, oh, yeah. Like, we did that estimate, they approved it, and we are working forward. No, we got to get them on our timeline for just because of getting materials in to make sure that they can get started. But, like, these things, those steps were 2 months ago, and these steps continue to move forward, even though maybe I don't feel like I am. Even though I was working on the business or in the business differently for the last 3 months, it's still rolling. But because I spent some of the time doing each of those, all those things are moving, if that makes sense. Hopefully I didn't muddy the water with that.
I think I understood it.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's just so many different ways I think that we can get off track with our goals.
Right.
And, and like we were saying, one is to understand our tendencies, the way we think, which is, where some of the coaching comes in that we've been doing on 5 voices, some of the tools of, what's important, how do I, what's important versus urgent, different things like that. And so understanding your tendencies where you struggle, because we all have places we struggle.
Right. Right.
And so how do we find other people to strengthen us where we're weak, right?
Yep.
So, for somebody like me in the creative, 30,000 foot level, I need somebody to help me outline things, to get down into that detail and say, hey, if this is where you get to, and break that down and just encourage me, like, just stay the course.
Right.
I know you feel stuck this week, but stay the course. Show up consistent, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. When I have those thoughts, I'm like, oh, great, I got it.
Right.
Or if you're on the other side going, yeah, I totally get the detail, but I don't know how to dream. I don't know how to, that just doesn't come natural.
Right.
Dry erase board with a bunch of colored markers.
Yep.
Gives me the shivers. No, thank you.
Right.
Don't use the word brainstorming.
Right.
Find somebody who loves that, and they can help pull ideas out of you. And so.
And I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt, like, those are great things for those that have people, but I also know that I used my coach for that at one point too. Like, so now he's coached me to the point where now I go to my coach for different things now, but I can do that part on my own. You know what I mean? So I've figured out how to do that part with my businesses. Yeah. So, but
coaches are great with that.
Coaches are great for that, and even other business owners that are friends or stuff like that.
Like you and I are part of some entrepreneurial circles.
Right.
That we get together with a handful of other entrepreneurs, business leaders. We're each in separate groups, right?
Right.
And, and so there's another 10 people, 10 relationships for me that I see their tendencies, who's good at what. And, any one of them would sit down for an hour for coffee or lunch and help me think through something. Absolutely.
Well, and I was just coaching a gal recently. We were in a meeting, and it was just, we were chit-chatting about some things, and she had her understanding of what she knew she wanted, but she was having a hard time getting there. So us sitting in a group, we were able to coach her through some of that. Hey, look, you probably need to be working on some more of this because that's where you're deficient. But yet that's where you want to go, which is the way to go for her with her situation, because we all knew her situation.
Right. Yeah, a lot of times it's like dominoes. Hey, another analogy. There
right.
It's like
I'm
dominoes.
Hungry
one has to, if you want the fifth one to fall, you got to figure out what those other 4 are.
Right.
I want to grow my sales. Well, you can't do that until you fix this, this, and this.
Right.
And we don't see that sometimes. And
totally
having other people speak into that's huge. Yeah.
Yep. Especially, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this and you're the guy who's the owner or gal, doesn't matter, Rich, who's owner, and working in the business,
Right.
I would
Owner,
say
operator.
owner
Yeah.
operator,
Uh-huh.
like it is really hard sometimes to bounce back and forth between those to truly be efficient.
Yep.
I think efficient and effective,
Right.
because if you want to go to the next level, man, there's so many times you have to step out of one of those roles, and sometimes when you step out of those roles, they look like I'm not doing anything. But sometimes you need to not do anything to be able to wrap your head around what you need to do.
Right. Right.
And it's a whole nother world.
Yeah. So thinking about that, I mean, another obstacle sometimes, is who is responsible for the goal.
Yeah.
This might be a goal for the business, but it's something that you totally lead and delegate.
Mm-hmm.
You meet that by delegating, that somebody else is achieving it's somebody else's to-do list, of getting it there. I mean, that's part of leadership is delegating.
True.
And, which, we can sit in January going, I don't know how I'm going to achieve all this.
Right.
Well, you're not supposed to.
Right.
You're supposed to lead it.
Right.
But you're not the one actually executing it.
Right.
Or you only execute 2 out of 10 things, So how do you get, being able to communicate that goal, the purpose, the why, the vision behind it, and getting your team members on board so that they are after that goal and they want to see it happen just as much as you do.
Yeah. And I think that as to your point, like if you're an owner operator, sometimes it's trying to figure out how to hire that person to be able to take those tasks on.
Right.
And that never feels good sometimes for an owner operator who has to maybe relinquish some level of transparency / authority, and be being where you can stay connected to somebody, where they can ask you questions.
Oh, accountable.
Accountable, thank you. I don't know why I couldn't.
I know we're good friends, but we're not at the finishing each other's sentences yet. So,
but like if you can,
we'll get there.
Like you can find somebody who's you can be accountable to. You can have that. You can authorize them to have that authority.
Right.
Like that's not easy for many solopreneurs who've started out on their own, and many times. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard, "Why would I pay them to do it when I can just do it faster, or I can get it done quicker, or I can get it done right the first time and not have to redo it."
Because that's working in your business.
Right.
And when you hire somebody to do that for you, yes, that might take them longer.
Yes.
It might cost you a little bit, but what that frees you up to do
and
is the value.
There's so many neat moments that come along with that, even though sometimes they're birthing moments of going through pain and trying to deal some things. I mean, you and I have had multiple conversations about some of that stuff.
Right. And I'm starting to hear more conversation, on other podcasts, other leaders just going, I should have hired sooner.
Yep.
Even when I didn't think it was financially possible, I should have hired sooner. And even like Donald Miller, the Business Made Simple. He's like that really should be like the first or second step you do. Is hire a virtual assistant. Hire somebody to handle the things that you don't need to be doing. Even if you can do them excellent and you can do them quickly and efficient. It only takes me 30 minutes to do that every week. Yeah. No.
And I mean,
it takes up bandwidth.
Right. So. How many solopreneurs have you heard? They're like, I'm just exhausted. I just work 70, 80 hours a week. And I'm like, I know, I feel your pain.
Right.
Keep going. But also like, don't stop with the idea that, that's the end all be all, because that's not the end all be all. It just depends on where you go. Now, if you don't focus on growth, then that will be the end all be all.
Because I think a lot of times we measure things like that financially.
Totally.
Like that would cost money. Yes, I'm working 70 hours a week, but if I pay somebody to do 20 hours a week, it's just money.
Right.
But we forget that the 20 hours that we would, I mean, if it was a 1-for-1, you hire somebody to do 20 hours of what you're doing, your 20 hours a week is more valuable than what you'd be paying that person.
Right.
Your rest, your health. Okay, that's a soapbox. We'll get off that.
Well, and I mean, no, I want to add to it actually, because I was also thinking like if you go as a solopreneur, if you hired somebody for 20 hours a week, I mean, how many times have you talked to a business owner and you're like, why don't you hire an assistant? Why don't you hire an office manager? And they're like, yeah, but I just don't know what I'd have them do.
Right.
Well, start with relinquishing small things.
Yeah. Well, and
I mean, just work your way up.
I mean, that's a battle that I'm working through. Is how do I find help with the things that kind of pull me down?
Right.
Because, like I said, I'm the big picture guy, and
right.
So I've been asking other people. Like I've got a couple of friends that do the coaching with Giant that I do. They actually share the same administrative assistant. And
that's smart.
They live in 2 different states, but they share the same assistant, right?
Oh, cool.
So I sent a message to her going, "Hey, what do you do for them? Help me to understand how you support them in their roles, so that I know what to think of here, because I'm like, I don't know, I don't know what to do with this or that,
Right.
And the other thing is talking to people. There's a lot of people who are looking at transitions in life who are like, yeah, I think I can only do 5 or 10 hours this week. Right now. And a lot of times we think 20 hours or 40 hours.
Right.
Either part-time or full-time in the traditional sense.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who are like, no, I'd love to be able to do, a couple hours a day, couple days a week.
Right.
While the kids are in school.
Especially if they can do it virtually.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I don't know, like for those that are listening, but like as a stay-at-home parent, I was a stay-at-home parent for a while.
Yeah. That's right.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Like I think that male or female, it doesn't matter. Like at one point I was looking for work to do at home while the kids were at school because I just I wanted to do, honestly, I just wanted to do something.
Right.
You
can only watch so much ESPN.
Right. And I'm like, yeah, I don't even think I watched
Cartoon Network. I don't know.
I don't even know what I did. And I mean, don't get me wrong. There's stuff to do around that. There was stuff I had other tasks that I need to get done.
Right.
So I couldn't do a 40-hour week.
Exactly.
And I couldn't do a 30-hour week.
Exactly.
But man, if I had something consistently that I could do 4 or 5 hours a day, then I could work other stuff around it and have everything done, and still be available for the kids when they needed me for the time frame that I was there.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the obstructions is that we see it as I have to do all of this.
Right.
When there's other routes. There's people on your team. There's assistants that you could hire, and and if you think about that like what would it mean for me to accomplish this goal at the end of the year? Right. And if I spent X amount on an assistant, that'd totally be worth it. Hey, I want to raise revenues by $100,000 this year. Well, if you spent less than I don't do math well, so if you spent less than $20,000 for the year on a very, very part-time assistant to help you reach that goal, that is well worth the investment. So
and more than likely, and in the midst of that transition, then you'll get more comfortable with the idea of what they can take on, and they might be able to take on more than you think they can.
Right. You get a taste of freedom. And you're like, oh, I want more.
Right. And then, but it's also the freedom that gives you to focus on your business and stuff like that.
Yeah. So one of the other obstructions that we touched on earlier was the size of goal. That sometimes we set goals too big or we set goals too small. And
and I want to say for this part too, before we go down that road.
Yeah.
Like somebody said something to me the other day. We're like, so we can change our goals? And I was like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like nobody said that this was written in stone, etched in stone, and you can't change it. Like if there's something that's shifted in your life and you realize, hey, that's not a viable goal. Like, and I do this stuff with my daughters too. And she was like, Dad, the one goal that I didn't hit last year, I couldn't do because I quit doing that activity. And it was a health issue, I think is why we quit doing it. I think it was riding horses. So like, and so she couldn't do it because she wanted to focus on this other stuff. I think it was a health issue. I don't remember what it was, but it was smart.
Horse riding, allergic to horses or whatever, right?
Right.
And now, now I can't do that.
I don't remember what it was exactly. Right. But either way, it didn't matter. It's the thing about it is she made a good decision, and I'm not saying like that you should compare your business to my daughter's life, but I am saying like it is healthy to have a conversation of, is this a viable goal anymore?
Things change.
And it's okay.
The biggest example in our lives is 2020. You know, say Stillwater Renovations. You guys go into 2020 going, hey, we should hire a new crew.
Right.
This year we're going to hire 3 new people. We're going to have a second crew out running, blah, blah, blah. March hits, and you're like, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen this year.
Right. And,
so what is our goal now? Survive.
Right. It's funny because that's kind of somewhat what happened. Like,
exactly.
And so it's like, okay, there is some things that are outside of my control that are might have to shift my goals, and it's okay.
Right. I mean, this year, 23, we're wondering, is a recession going to happen?
Right.
Are these things going to take place? And we want to set goals based on the optimistic side of,
Right, for sure.
This is where we want to grow. But if things slow down, adjust the goals.
Right.
It's not, yeah.
And don't do it out of fear. Like, I mean, I would still be optimistic and focus on it. But
right.
Let's go back to your point. Like, maybe the goal is too big.
Right.
Like
biting off more than we can chew.
How do we figure that out?
Yeah. I don't know. No.
Well, I mean, I think that we go back to our conversation where we started out with, which is, let's break it down. Like, are you spending too much time trying to make that goal happen?
Right.
And if you are, then okay, is it really?
Yeah.
Is it supposed to take that? Is it that important that it needs to consume most of your time or not?
Right. You need to ask, why is this unrealistic?
Yeah.
Is it my bandwidth, or am I just putting together numbers? I'm going to grow from $1 million business to a $10 million business this year.
Yeah.
Wow,
that's a big jump.
And there's things in there. Can you control the process?
Right.
Because it's not unrealistic in terms of that has happened in history before.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has gone through an amazing amount of growth, but the ingredients to that were incredibly specific. Mm-hmm. And there were some things in there that they went viral in a way that they didn't control. It just happened,
right.
And so why is it unrealistic? Are there things in there that, magical set of ingredients that have to happen that you can't really fully control? Or, do you just not have the bandwidth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I and if you've listened to this and you've gotten through how many minutes this long this is, know that like my whole goal in having this conversation is making sure that you're walking in. You've set your goals for this year. You're probably dealing with some of it right out of the gate, right?
Right.
Because as entrepreneurs, many times we're excited about the new year. We're excited about the possibilities that are coming. So I'm not trying to downplay anybody's goals, but what I am trying to do is make sure that you can last through the journey process of it versus. So I want to encourage you through your journey, and make sure that you are being as systematic as possible.
Right, because the other side of unrealistic goals, unattainable, is that we set too many.
Yes.
Right. And maybe you just outlined a 3-year plan, not a 1-year plan.
Right.
And
so recognize that for what it is. Maybe it is a 3-year plan instead of a 5-year plan. Because going from 1 million to 10 million is a big jump, and it might be a 5-year, 10-year plan.
Right.
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's brings us back to having coaches or mentors or trusted friends or people that you can bounce things off of and say, what do you think about this?
Yeah. And find yourself a coach. I mean, like, it is by far, I think, one of the best investments I've ever made.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah.
Well, should we wrap this up so I can go work on my goals?
Yeah, sure. It's like we're the second.
I got stuff to do now.
I was like, were we supposed to talk about this back in October? But yeah, probably. But I also know that I don't want people to get frustrated right out of the gate. And it's like, I mean, how many times have you? I don't know if you know this or not, but like the gyms. Like everybody's influxed into the gyms right now. Like, because they've got a weight loss goal. Right. I mean, I got a weight loss goal. I'll be honestly, I'm not at the gym, but I got a weight loss goal. Right. And I'm trying to stay on it as well. And I know that I'm already starting to run out of steam on it. I mean, this is just keeping it real, right?
Absolutely.
But
I mean, we talked about how to set goals.
Right.
Now we're talking about, okay, I don't want to keep going. I'm done.
Right. Like, I mean, like, but I also know I need to for my health purposes. And so it's like, okay, well, there's got to be some ebb and flow, some give and take, some enjoying of the journey.
Some accountability.
Some accountability. Yeah. Like, I'm like, I wonder how many people just like start January, like running out of the gate. Like, because.
Well, I mean, if you take
it's exciting to think of, well, for me it is. It's exciting to think about the goals and the potential of 2023.
Right.
Like, because I'm a visionary. I'm that guy.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the cross country race, right? That, you out of the block too fast, right?
Right.
Or you go to the gym and you're like, I'm going to work out an hour a day.
Right.
And by the third day, you're like, I am dying. I will not, so, how do you?
Or do you have a conversation that goes, hey, Jason, I want to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. You're like, good time. Have a good time with that.
Good luck. Yep.
So
that was a hypothetical conversation. All right, let's wrap this up.
All right, well, you guys,
thanks for bringing this topic today.
Yeah,
man.
thanks for listening and send your questions in. If you got something that's pertaining to this, or even something that you're struggling with for 2023, send a question in, because I'd love to 100%. Chat with that. And if we can read off some of the questions off here online on the air and just chit chat about it.
That's right. Because we have the answer to every question.
Maybe you do. I'm still learning.
No, this is the sarcastic part of it.
Okay, that's good.
Answers that we don't know, we will research enough to point you in the right direction,
or
to somebody who does know.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about.
When we do have good resources, I'm confident in our resources.
Yeah.
So
there's somebody that knows, and we'll bring them in as an interview.
There you go.
And then your questions will be answered.
For sure. Love that idea. So make sure you send your questions in.
That's right. Leadingisserving.com.
We love the idea of being able to give content to you guys that you want to listen to and grow from.
That's right.
How exciting is that?
So, okay, let's talk goals.
Okay.
Our goal for the podcast is to grow this year.
It is.
We would love to, expand our listenership, bring in more interviews and things like that.
Right.
So, as a listener, here's how you can help us, support us in our goals.
Right.
2 ways stick out in my mind. The best way to grow a podcast is rate and review.
Yep.
If you hop onto Spotify, Apple on the website directly at leadingisserving.com, you can write a review. You can hit the little 5 stars or 4 stars, preferably 5.
If there's 5, we need 5.
That's right. You can do that. That will help us grow tremendously. Right. I mean, sure. I've seen that over and over again, and we'd love for you to send us that. And the other way is there's a little button on there to donate. That helps us cover the costs of editing and hosting and things like that. We're not we're not throwing ads on.
No.
We're listener supported.
Yep.
And so if you want to be a part of helping this podcast grow, we'd love for you to help us reach our goals this year.
For sure. That'd be awesome if you guys can help us out.
I mean, from imperfect analogies to wonderful segues and ties in. How's that?
I like it.
That's the value I bring.
I love it. And we're only in
Whatever.
We're only in January.
I know. We got a lot of year to grow. Here we go. No, that was my goal. I'm done.
Okay.
That was my goal for the year. I'm good.
Good job. Second weekend of
January.
I'm
going to take 11 and a half months off now.
Yeah. Good job.
Hey, you guys are great.
Yeah, you guys have a great one. Thanks for listening.
We'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.